Hello Space Cat, I'm Jules, an illustrator living on an island off the south coast of England. I spend my mornings in my cosy studio and the afternoons baking sourdough and hanging out with my furry friends. Of course, tea from a proper pot is essential, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, you grab a cup and I'll pour. Hello my lovely Space Cat friends, it's Jules here. I just woke up this morning and thought, I'm going to draw a fairy today. I just love fairy magic and all that kind of malarkey. And I've already made quite a big project that I'm going to share with you next week that's very exciting. So today's actually Friday and I'm planning on this coming out on Monday, so I need to get a scoot on with it. But this is going back to the method that I would normally use with the majority of the work I produce, and that is using a Tombow Fudenosuke pen. It's the hard-tipped one. And often I use watercolour, but today I'm going to be just using Inktense. And the thing that came to me, that's this little quote came to me the other day: focus on fairy magic and the rest will take care of itself. Now, I'm sure there's a quote like that somewhere out there that can probably say it a lot better, but sometimes when I'm in the doldrums and things are a little difficult, I like to just take myself away into a fairy woodland somewhere and just imagine I'm there hanging out with all my little badger friends and the foxes and the squirrels. And it just makes everything seem so much nicer and I'm more able to cope with things when they are tricky. So maybe you have a place like that you like to go to, and I've recently found lying in a hammock in a woodland is so amazingly beneficial. I've got a friend who actually reached out to me. I think she'd seen my YouTube videos and knew that I produce books, and she wanted some consultation work. So she reached out to me, and I do that sort of thing now and then, but her project actually really inspired me, and I thought it was such a brilliant idea that we've actually done a bit of swapsies now, and she lives on the island. I was going to say my island. I don't own it. It's just the island I live on. We live not that far apart, so I'm helping her with her project, and in return she's giving me some time in the woodland that she works in, and she does this thing called hammock time, which is kind of like a meditative, mindful experience where you just lie in a hammock in a woodland. And I got to tell you, I've lain in hammocks before on beaches and stuff like that, and this is a totally different experience. It's brilliant and I love it. So that's kind of where I was thinking of when I was making this lovely little fairy. There I've got the Inktense pencils, and I think I've shown you before. If not, I will just pop a little picture in the corner here of my box of Inktense pencils that my lovely friend Zoe gave me. And thankfully the pencil sharpener hole is the right size for this particular brand of Derwent pencils. I've had trouble with the Derwent Artist pencils because they're a little bit too fat to go in my new mechanical sharpener, which has pretty much changed my view on sharp pencils. I love having it really sharp because then you can get into that detail and start making some great marks. So here I'm building up the colours. This is, I think, amber. It looks very kind of browny gold, but once you put a bit of water onto it, which is what you do with Inktense pencils, it starts to look a very different colour, much more saturated in the pigment and just fabulous basically. So I wanted to do a paler colour underneath and then build up to darker colours. So I also had baked earth, which is a sort of mid-brown, and I had the dark chocolate. So this is the baked earth going in. Not to be confused with baked beans, because that would make a horrendous mess on the paper. It's currently autumn. We just had the equinox a couple of weeks ago, and now we're into proper autumn weather. So we're getting really chilly mornings and warmer afternoons and a lot of rain, and of course the old fungi love that kind of thing, so I'm hoping to see some great fungi soon. Perhaps in the next couple of weeks we might see some of that fly agaric that I've drawn there. And this dress, I just wanted it to be kind of really floaty and, I don't know, made of some kind of like almost like spider web material, but it's green. Then as for the wings, I thought I'd do the base colour first and then wet it, and then once that had dried I'm going to go back in with that dark chocolate pencil and do some of the vein and the wing definition. Time for the exciting bit. Here's my lovely jar of water and my brushes. This one is my favourite brush. I use this a lot. So this is just to go around the edges. I'm not going to be using that inside because it's just too big. Swapping now to a smaller brush just to do some of that detail on that beautiful dress. Gosh, I wish I had a dress like this. It's amazing. And you'll notice I'm not covering the whole area with water because I want to see some of those brush strokes and pencil strokes together. If I put water over the whole thing, then I'd lose quite a bit of that pencil mark definition. And I think it just gives that dress a bit more of a sort of flowy feel to the dress and the fabric. It's really important as you swap between the colours that you make sure you rinse your brush out, and also that you've got a piece of kitchen paper or tissue next to you so that you can dab off any pigment or any extra water that you don't really want to drop into that particular area. Now this was very tricky to do. I made sure that every time I lifted my brush I rinsed off into the water because I want that edge bit to be a lot whiter and a lot lighter than the bit that's attached to her body and her dress. I was going to start with her hair, but then I realised what I really needed to do was rinse my brush out and actually do her skin tone first, because that needs to go behind the hair and I don't really want to get that muddled up. So going round that eye to make sure there's a bit of white left for the eyeball. And I've mixed two colours together to make this skin tone. One was a sort of crimson-y colour and the other was a soft yellow. I think it was Sicilian. And that just gives the tone that I was looking for. Then back into the hair, and again I'm not covering the whole thing because I want to see those definitions of the curls and the wispy bits and the slightly dishevelled look of her hair. I really like the little leaves and the acorns that are in her hairdo. I don't know whether it's a kind of hair wreath or a hair crown or something, or whether she's just been through a bush and got things stuck to her. I'm sure she doesn't mind either way. Now time to carefully go around those white dots, and the reason I've not covered the whole thing in red and then put some white gouache on top or something is because I don't think it gives as good a white as just leaving the page to do that work for me. Again, near where the stem is, I've made sure it's a little bit darker than the edge, whiter towards the tip of those leaves. Now again with a big brush and just going in with that background. I deliberately made the background kind of scruffy, and just because I wanted it to be not the focus of the picture. Bit of lippy. That's Shiraz, that colour. So it's going to be quite a dark red. And now back with that dark chocolate colour, and I'm just going to make some veins and do some, they're going to be kind of like butterfly wings. It's quite a typical sort of fairy wing type style, isn't it? So this is the first bit, and then I'm going to make sure I go back and do it a little bit darker before I start thinking about adding some water to it. And a little bit of iris for her pupil. Oh, now the exciting bit, some pearlescent, this is Daler-Rowney pearlescent white ink, and I'm splattering it. Don't want to splatter it on her, so I'm covering her up. This is very shiny, kind of metallic-y, fairy-like, and I think it really adds something to the picture. As you know, I like to splatter a lot. And here's the finished thing. Join me next week when you might be interested in a little thing I'm doing. Until then, I'm off to go and lie in a hammock with my eyes shut. I will see you next week. Nanu nanu.